Madigan McGinnis. I'm part of the Visionary Building team. I'm a student out of Clemson, South Carolina, and I am doing my first ever interview, having my first conversation with one of my favorite professors I've had. I've gotten to take Dr. Johnson twice now throughout my college career, and she's been such a presence, such an inspiration, and I've really enjoyed just everything she has to teach me. So she agreed to have this conversation with me, and I'm so grateful.
Yes. Thank you so much, Madigan. This is an honor to be a part of this great effort, and I just feel honored to be interviewed. So thank you.
Um, I have a few questions for you, if that's okay.
Okay.
My first one being, what does a visionary mean to you?
Oh, wow. A visionary to me is somebody who's not afraid to take chances, is somebody who is not afraid to step outside of the box. We always talk about being outside of the box, but a visionary is almost someone who steps outside of and not really knowing what's going to happen, but they have the faith to believe that it's going to be something good. So a visionary sees the good stuff, but knowing that the bad stuff might be there. In other words, you might fall down a couple of times, but the visionary sees themselves getting back up. So I think a visionary is somebody who is not afraid to step outside of the box, not afraid to fall down, but hopeful and excited about getting back up because they know that they still have more to do.
I love that so much. And I love that you said that because that's exactly how I think that you make each and every one of your students feel every time they come into your
Hope
classroom.
so. I hope so. I hope so. And it really is because sometimes when I'm working with my students, it's almost like they don't even know the greatness that sits inside of them. But I'll see them or I'll hear them say something, and I'm like, that is so profound. You don't even know you said something profound because often we remain unheard. And I think the more we give our young people in particular the opportunities to be heard, the more they gain that confidence to keep talking and advocating for self, because that's really what this is about, is what can you go and advocate for others, add voice to somebody else's life, and make them even more powerful. So that's what this work is about.
And that's your forte, that's your skill set, pushing
So
youth to develop into the best they possibly can and to have those tools to help them through the harder things in life. Would you say that you work in a male dominated environment, or is it pretty even?
What I love about my department in particular, I can't really speak for the other departments, but I'm not familiar enough. But what I love the most about my department is that they are intentional about the people who come and work in the department, because we serve young people who come from so many different dynamics that you have to be able to walk into a space and hear a representative for that group of young people that you're serving. So we have women, it's a good balance. We have minorities, a good balance. We have males, is a good balance. So I feel that all of the voices of the young people that we are charged to serve is represented in our department. So for us, youth development and leadership is truly about that. All of us coming together. And when we have our meetings and you look around the conference table or wherever we are having our meeting, it feels like that everybody's represented there in a good way.
The fact that Clemson actually represents that and your department actually represents that is really wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel really solid about that. And there have been times that I have been in scenarios or settings where it hasn't looked this balanced. And that is tough because you sometimes are viewed as the minority at the table, you're viewed as the woman at the table. But again, advocating for self and not being afraid to step up in a space that says, well, I don't really have something important to say, but knowing that what you have to say is something you can bring to the table. So that confidence level has to be intact. And I think the more opportunities we get to talk to people who don't look like us, who don't think like us, can build our confidence. And I think just being able to express myself in a space has allowed me to be okay in some of the male dominated arenas that I've been in. So advocating for self and confidence that you know what you're talking about and you got something to say, you got something to bring to the table, and knowing that gives you that power, if you will, to be able to speak up.
I love that. That's really inspiring. What inspired you to get into teaching?
Oh, let's see. I never, in all honesty, Madigan, I never saw myself as a teacher. You know, believe it or not, I was going to be a television anchor woman. I was going to be the talk show hostess of the universe. And I got into television, and it was just one of those things that I didn't feel like I could thrive in the way I wanted to. A lot of it was information that I had to disseminate that kind of made me sad. It was, you know, heavy stuff. I wanted to be able to give people hope. I wanted to be able to inspire them. I wanted to be able to encourage them. And then the people that I knew who did that were educators. And I thought, well, maybe that's the profession I should look into. And so I started as early childhood education. I thought I wanted to work with the little babies, and I still do. I love working with my littles. But as I started maturing in my arena of education and teaching, I became really hungry for knowledge and information. So I started working in middle schools and high schools, and that was fulfilling. But what I really found as my sweet spot was when I was able to talk to college folks who were about to embark on the career journey. And so I wanted to be able to really pour into them that last little bit before they stepped out into the real world, which could either elevate them and make them believe that they could do powerful things, or it could rip the rug from under them and make them feel that they were not prepared. And so I thought this is a very critical and pivotal space. And I want to be able to inspire in some good and positive way. So that's kind of how I ended up in college. I started with just being a guest presenter certain places. And then I realized I can do this. I love it. I love talking at this kind of an intellectual level with students. So it just became my passion at that point. And so here I am all these years later, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I love teaching college.
And you can see it every time that I come into your classroom. We have our creative activities for youth class
Oh,
on
yes.
Thursdays at 7 p.m. And I know, like, I come in, I'm pretty tired. I'm like, oh, one more class. You bring my energy from here to here every time.
Yay,
On Thursday
good.
evening. I don't know how you do it, but you can just feel your passion.
Psychological sometimes. You know, and that's what we've got to remind ourselves is that, you know, the world is heavy and it can make you tired. But that visionary, when you started with that powerful and pivotal, you know, question, what is a visionary? That's somebody who can still, even at the end of the day, muster up a little bit more energy and enthusiasm to get them to that next point, that next plateau. And that's kind of what I do. I imagine what you guys are going to be able to do one day. And that gives me that little bit of energy to just say, okay, let me get this hour and a half. Let me get through this and inspire some more. And when you start doing it and you're, you know, being received from your audience, you know, because you guys have to receive it. It's the end of the day. You could just turn your camera off and disappear. And, you know, I really wouldn't know, right? But you stay in there and you answer and you help and you build. And that's what's powerful. It's that two-part thing, that bi-directional flow. And that's how we can be successful. Pouring into you, will you pour back into me too?
Do you find yourself taking any of your teaching practices and just applying it in your everyday life?
Oh, every day. I tell people all the time when I'm talking to them, I say, I'm talking to you because I'm talking to me, because I have to inspire myself to keep going, because again, the world is heavy. There's a lot of things going on, not only in our lives as adults, but watching our young people and the things that they're having to navigate that we never had to think about when I was a child. You know, I said I was never going to do that. I said I was never going to say, because my grandparents used to say, when I was a child, and here I am saying when I was a child. But I never had to worry about some of these things when I was a child that I see the young people now have to deal with. So I do think it's important that we find ways to help them just navigate the process. And that comes from, you know, being able to sit down and say, I'm tired, and be okay with that, or to say, I don't feel like listening and learning today. And I try to give my students that space to be authentic and honest with me. If you're not feeling it, then tell me, how do you feel? Scale of 1 to 10. I'm a 5. Well, you know what? I can appreciate that, but hopefully you'll be a 7 when we're done. So really allowing them to be okay, being okay.
And you're also a writer. right?
I am. I'm a children's author, 25 books. I can't even believe it. When I say that, it sounds absolutely bizarre. It's like, I can't possibly be that old. But I have been writing professionally since 1997, my dear. And I just, again, I didn't think I was going to end up in education. I liked writing. That was going to take me to be an anchor woman and in the television world. So I liked writing part of it, but the teaching part, I just didn't know that that was going to be the path. And so now, being a children's author, I get to write materials to teach others how to write. I get to write materials that will inspire young people to learn. So I kind of, in a weird way, have the best of both worlds as an author and as an educator.
I feel like you are just such a good role model of finding your purpose and your passion and what fills your
Mhm.
tank and just living it every single day.
Mhm. And you have to, Madigan, because I tell people, when you find your purpose and you find your passion and you let them run on a road together, you'll soon realize that it's just one track, because your passion and your purpose, when they get lined up, there is no stopping you, because the passion is a part of your soul that compels you to act. That means I'm going to keep doing it even on the days that I don't want to do it. My passion is going to drive it. And then your purpose just sort of aligns with that passion, because if you can get what you love to do lined up with what you're destined to do, there is no stopping that road. It may start as two roads, but once they get close enough together, it's like that magnetic force, and it just, that passion starts taking the lead, and that passion pulls you even when you don't feel like it. Because some days I don't feel like it, but I'm so passionate about it that I get the energy from somewhere that I didn't even know I had. So get that passion and purpose lined up, and even if you don't know which one is your purpose, which one is your passion, just keep moving towards something that you feel makes others' lives happy, and I promise you it will end up making your life happy. Because when I can hear kids say, I love that story, can you read it again? Well, I'm tired, I don't really feel like reading it again. But when I do it and I see that joy in their face, it gives me a purpose, it gives me a reason to read it one more time. So really not being afraid to get those two, whether they're lined up or not, but put them in the same space, and I promise you they will just connect without you sometimes even knowing it happened.
I feel like as a visionary, as so many visionaries are, you have such a skill of seeing the big picture in your head, dreaming really big. Being a news anchor isn't really giving me that passion. I'm gonna just take the jump and find it in education, and I feel like that's such a daunting thing for so many people.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you give any advice, or what kind of tools would you say? Because I know you love your toolkit. What kind of tools in your toolkit do you think you would encourage people to build to be able to?
I would tell them, there's this little plant that I have here, and I love this plant. It's not real, it's fake, because if it were real, honey, it would be dead by now, because I'm terrible with plants. I am not a green thumb. So I have this little fake plant, and it's bright green. I love it. It says, remember your roots. And I think here it's not real, so I don't have to water it. So I don't have to worry about whether the roots are going to grow or not. But it reminds me to not forget how I got to this place. And the way I got to this place is I found the people who could surround me and encourage me, whether they were educated or not educated, whether they were professionals or non-professionals. The people who really mattered the most to me, who made me understand that I'm going to make mistakes in life, but it's not how you come out of those. It's not how you finish, it's how you start. If you start strong, then you're going to finish strong, because sometimes we only start with thinking we got to be successful. Because when I went into that career field of trying to be an anchor woman, all I could think about is, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to be rich and famous, and that's what people are going to see. But really, that road to getting there, I was miserable. I didn't like writing stories that were so negative, but those were the stories that were going to catapult me, if you will, to the top of that list of being successful and famous, because those were the stories that got recognized. When you could cover something big that was catastrophic or horrific, that just kind of gave you your name. I didn't like those stories. I wanted stories about little old ladies who were helping people in their community. I wanted to write stories about kids who sold lemonade so they could feed hungry families. Those were the stories that I cared about. But because I was so hyper focused on this point, I kept pushing myself to get there, even though I was miserable. So what I would say is, remember your roots, know what it is that you started as, and then take that thing that you loved as a young person and figure out how you can monetize that. How can you take what you love and really build a career from that? When I was a little girl, I loved drawing and writing words. Those are the things that I grew up on. And so I figured out, how could I take that thing that I love and not go up this ladder, because that's not the ladder I want to be on, but what other ladders can I have? And sometimes we forget that there are other ladders that we can climb because we're so forced or focused on that one. Because when I said I wanted to be an anchor woman, everybody kept pushing me to do that, because then I didn't want to try anything different, because I felt like I would disappoint others around me, even my own family, to be honest with you. Because when I said it, they were like, oh, she's going to be a famous anchor woman. She already said she's going to be on TV. And so I felt like I was afraid to tell them that I don't think I really want to do that. So I would say, find your truth. Figure out what it is that you love. If you don't love it, don't get so connected to it that you keep doing it and you're going to end up here and be miserable. So remember how you started and think about what you loved in your younger days and try to figure out how to take that thing you love and form it and shape it and become who you want to be without the pressures of somebody else expecting you to do it. Because when it's all said and done, Madigan, when nightfall comes and you put your head down on your pillow, you have to be okay with being who you are. I don't think I would have been okay being that person that I was striving to be. And it wasn't until I walked into my truth of being a teacher, because I heard everybody say, well, you know, teachers don't get paid. They don't respect educators. So all those things made me keep trying to climb this ladder that I really didn't want to be on. And so it wasn't until I said, what does Kimberly Johnson want? What does she want? And then when I got to that point, I was able to follow my passion and my dream. And then, like I said, it started lining up. And I promise you, if you find that thing that you love, you will find a way to monetize it, because your passion will lead the way into it. I didn't know I loved writing. I didn't know that would make me a children's author. How did I not know that? But it did. It became my career. And so I tell people all the time, I love working. How many people can say that? I love my job. I love working. That's hard to say, but find that part that is you. Remember your roots, what got you here, and then follow that. I'm praying that as a parent, that I will be able to encourage my children to go for the thing that they love, even if it's not on my list of things that I would pick for your life, that I'm going to be okay supporting that, as long as you're doing something that is not adverse or that's not out here taking away from someone else's happiness and joy. I'm going to support you. And I remember when I was a little girl, I was raised by grandparents who were just, devout Christians, hardworking people who just believed in, treating people right. And that if you go through your life doing the right things, that the sun will shine on you and your life will be great. And I really remember my grandfather saying this, and I never understood it until I got older. He would say, if you're going to be a ditch digger, be the best ditch digger you can be. And I thought, what does that mean? And so he essentially was saying, whatever job you do it with pride, do it with fidelity, and do it with just pure passion and love for it, and you will always be okay. So whatever you do, if you love it, then be the best at it that you can be. And so I think sometimes people just work a job, and sometimes we have to, because it's about survival. So you might have to just do a job you don't love. I had some jobs I didn't like doing, but it made me more motivated to do what I love so I could get away from that job. But I think when you go into it with the idea that I'm going to be the best, even if it's not a job that's on somebody's bucket list of fabulous jobs. Be good at it, and that's going to just give you everything you need, and that will help build the success that you can find, because success looks different. It's not just money. Success is waking up excited about going to work, whether you're getting paid or not. That's why I said passion has got to drive it, the part of your soul that compels you to act. That means even if you don't get paid one dime, I would still teach. Even if I weren't getting a check, I would still teach, because I love teaching. Somehow I would find a way to teach. So not being afraid and being the best at whatever you choose to do is going to help build that vision, and it's going to also help build the happiness, the internal happiness that so many of us are missing in the world today.
I just have one more,
Okay.
if that's okay. What advice would you give to young women looking to do what you do?
I would say, don't ever feel like that you are a weak woman in the room. You are powerful. You have something to say, and you bring something to the table. And if you don't know what you bring to the table, I want you to get a piece of paper. I want you to write down A through Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z. And I want you to go through that list and start writing down the things that you know you could bring to a conversation. A, you could bring an attitude of helping, an attitude of openness, an attitude of working together, collaboration. B, you might bring a big smile. Maybe everybody's so just bent out of shape. You walk into the room and that big smile just lets everybody know you're bringing spark to that space. C, you're bringing collaboration, that willingness to work together. So you go through those letters of the alphabet and you figure out what is it that you bring. Because when you say you don't have anything to bring, that's because you're not digging deep enough. So dig inside of yourself, figure out everything you have to offer, and walk in that knowing that you are powerful, you are wonderfully and fearfully made. And that means that you got the power to step into any space and create a vision. But first of all, you got to not be afraid to chase and to question, interrogate yourself about what your vision is. You may not know it and right in that moment, but keep asking yourself, what is it that I would do and not get paid for? What is it that I would do and not get paid for? And when you find that little nugget of something, foster it and start growing it, because that is how you will be rooted in your success.
That's so amazing. I feel like you have just so much wisdom to share to the world, students, children, adults in their career. You just have so much to say, and you are just my definition of a visionary.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you, because I know the work that you do as well. And I know how powerful it is and how much you're committed to create change in the world. So when I get that back, it means check, my work has been planted in the right places and it's been watered. And I want you to just keep watering that too, Madigan. As a young woman in the world creating change, don't you ever, ever, ever let anybody stop you from creating the change. And you, my friend, keep pouring, because somebody's going to be interviewing you one day. And I want to know that you're giving them all the good nuggets that you had to learn along the way, because each one teach one. And the more we pour into each other, we just keep growing and expanding our knowledge and our wisdom. We are only great together.